Welcome to Bake to the Future. The wholesale baking industry mixes tradition and innovation to feed the world and the economy, generating some major dough while employing nearly 800,000 people in the U.S. We bring you a fresh take on the latest trends and issues impacting the baking sector through exclusive insights and conversations. Brought to you by the American Bakers Association, who will take you Bake to the Future.
Hi everyone, I'm Haley Blumenreich.
And I'm Katie Jewell.
And today we are going to go Bake to the Future with Robb MacKie, ABA CEO and President. And we're going to talk to him about baking industry insights.
Great, thanks for having me.
Welcome. Before we even dive into the topic of today, we will have to ask you the toughest question.
It's definitely the toughest question of the entire interview.
What is your favorite baked good?
Hands down, key lime pie.
No hesitation.
Oh no, I go strong with what I like.
All right, so if key lime pie is your favorite, do you have a maker or a producer of the key lime pie that is your favorite?
No.
Okay.
Well, there's the Key Lime Pie Company in Key West, Florida, which makes outstanding, award-winning key lime pie. So they're not a member, but we'll work on that.
Okay. Do you have a key lime pie preference? Are you a key lime pie or no key lime?
I don't love citrus in my desserts.
No lemon bars for you?
Nope. But I respect those who enjoy them. And
wait a minute, Haley. I'm the politician in the room.
I don't discriminate on baked goods or dessert, but I prefer chocolate.
Of course. Chocolate's always a winner.
Yeah. What about you, Katie?
I'm a Publix key lime pie person.
Oh.
Excellent choice.
Yeah. Publix by far.
I think they've won a few awards
too. Yep. By far.
Good.
So there's someone to back up your love of their key lime pie.
I think ABA should definitely have a key lime pie contest, and maybe we can flip you.
Well, that's why we partner with the American Pie Council, because they do that every year in Florida, in Celebration, Florida, not making that up. And it is a great event, and if you want to go judge key lime pie or any other pie, you can go do that. I don't recommend judging the key lime pie, because if you like it, you will hate it afterwards.
Okay.
It took me 2 years to eat key lime pie after that event.
So Pie Council, key lime pie, and pie contest.
Yes.
Celebration.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you, Rob. Thank you for that.
Well, today we could talk about pies for an entire episode.
And we should.
That will come later.
We should make that our special holiday episode.
Yes.
Oh, man.
What we would really like to talk to you about is general baking industry trends. The perspective that you have as the head of ABA is very unique because ABA has this broader view of the entire industry, so you can really see the greater trends and see from that perspective what's going on within the industry. And so we really want to get your take on what you see is going on. And before we dive in, could you tell us a little bit about your background and what brought you to ABA and why you've been with ABA for so long?
Well, that's a great question, Haley. And I would love to tell you that it was a straight line from my youth right into ABA along the way, and that would be a total fabrication. So when I was growing up, my dad was in the Army, so, I'm the quintessential Army brat. We moved every 2 or 3 years, literally all over the world. And I think what it did is gave me, at an early age, an appreciation for clearly global affairs, political events, and things like that. And so while I didn't know that I was going to end up in Washington, it just sort of seemed like a natural deal. So in college, a lot of people don't actually know this, but my dream was actually to fly airplanes for the Air Force. All I wanted to do was fly A-10s for the Air Force. And at Cole Fieldhouse at the University of Maryland for my final physical. And as luck would have it, I met Lefty Driesell, who was the basketball coach, world-famous basketball coach at Cole Fieldhouse. That's another story for another time. But anyway, they discovered that I didn't have 20/20 vision. And it was a heartbreaking moment. And I actually came probably within about 4 hours of going to work for Bethlehem Steel in Baltimore. Because in 1981, $24 an hour with benefits was an incredible deal. But, my mom was great, and she convinced me, go to school, because I'd had my school all picked out. I had my whole life picked out ahead of me. And so my mom told me to go to school, go in-state, go for a year until I got it figured out. And so then my next big thing was, history and politics. I became a political science major at Frostburg State University. And so then I ended up, my last semester of college, I went to work on Capitol Hill for my congresswoman, Marjorie Holt, who was the first woman elected to Congress in her own right. So she didn't succeed a husband or a son. And I had just a great experience. And then she was retiring. So then I went to work for, ironically, an Arizona congressman, freshman member of Congress from Arizona. I say ironically because I was going to go to Arizona State if I was going to fly for the Air Force. The world is kind of an odd place, how the sort of different twists and turns. So how did I get at ABA? So I worked on Capitol Hill for about 6.5 years, was really in charge of a lot of the domestic spending bills. My boss was on the Appropriations Committee. So our job was to bring as many federal dollars back to the state of Arizona as we could. And I learned a tremendous amount in that process. But then I went to, my wife and I decided to raise a family. And so I left Capitol Hill, went to work for 2 different associations in the construction space, learned a tremendous amount in both experiences. And then literally one of my best friends in all of Washington called me and he said, I'm leaving ABA. I'd like you to come over and interview. And I'm like, no, I'm fine. I got a great boss, got a great gig, haven't touched my resume in 5 years, all that stuff. And so lo and behold, he wore me down. And at that point in my career, I was kind of looking for a home. I had a great job. It was going to take something really big. And it wasn't the money piece of it. It was, I wanted to really learn an industry. I wanted to take everything that I learned on Capitol Hill and in Washington. And so at that point, it was about 10 years worth of experience. And I really wanted to apply it to an industry I respected, admired, and where I could find a home. And that was, almost 25 years ago. And so, I've been very fortunate in my career here. It's been a great industry. It's a great group of people. And that's what makes this industry.
What is it about the baking industry that is so special and so unique?
So it really is the people. I mean, these are the ultimate entrepreneurs, and whether they're a smaller family independent company or whether they're some of our largest members, at their core, they're entrepreneurial in spirit. I mean, it's a low margin business, so they're out there competing in the marketplace every single day. They're creating new products. There are new ways to get to market. It really is the people, and I've been so blessed. In my career, great example, I had an opportunity right out of the box, because again, I really wanted to learn an industry. So Paul Abenante, who was the president of ABA, he was just a great mentor to me because I asked him a lot of crazy questions and I asked him to do a lot of crazy things, and he never said no. And so probably within months of coming to ABA, I went to Chicago to visit with our members. A lot of people don't realize we used to be based in Chicago. So it's kind of our natural home. There's a lot of concentration of bakers in Chicago. And so I spent a couple of days and, I did some business, but I really got to know some of the leaders in the industry, some of the highly respected folks at like Ganella in Toronto and Alpha Baking Company in particular, but I also got to have a lot of fun because I'd never been to Wrigley Field, a huge baseball fan. I mean, that's sort of one of the big meccas, if you will, if you're a baseball fan. So I got to go to Wrigley Field. We played golf. We had dinner at one of the nicest sort of up-and-coming restaurants in Chicago, and I got back to the office, and I'm like, well, it didn't feel like much of a business trip. And I remember Paul telling me, he says, no, but you've developed relationships that will be meaningful and important to you for the rest of your time at ABA. And I was just with Ganella recently and was sort of regaling them with that story. And even though some of the faces have changed over the years, it's still that family mentality. You're sort of welcomed into the family. So it's just it really is the people.
What were some of the crazy things that you asked Paul for? Do you remember? Yeah,
no, I do. So a couple of them were, one of the things, because when I was working before ABA, I was very involved in a lot of the labor management issues. But I never had the opportunity to sit in on a contract negotiation. So I went multiple times to different, large contracts, with multiple employers in the room, multiple unions in the room, and then some small, contracts, locally. So I got an opportunity to sit in and see how that process really works, and incredible learning experience, and then made me better. Because at that time, there was a lot of really onerous legislation moving through Congress that dealt particularly with some of the labor management issues. I got to ride a route sales truck at 4 o'clock in the morning, and alongside a route sales rep, and really understand, what the challenges they face out on the road and servicing customers, and how do you get, fresh product to the customer as quickly as possible. Those are a couple of the things that really stand out.
Yeah, I can see how that experience, because if you're talking to people who work in government about these issues, you need to be able to experience them yourself to really convey the urgency and the need that's really there. It's hard to convey that without experiencing it yourself.
No, I think you're absolutely right, Haley. And one of the things that we're so fortunate is that our members are really good about telling us their stories. And what we do is, and what makes us effective, is we can take all of the legal and policy, conversations, and then really kind of condense them down in terms of impact to bakers. And we're able to share that with the bakers. And then they share with us in some pretty stark terms sometimes, what do those policy changes, mean to them. And then we can go, to Capitol Hill or to regulatory agencies now on the state side with a great deal of authority that we know what we're talking about, because, our members really share that. But it's also experiences like that. And, one of the things I'm a huge believer in is we got to get outside the Beltway. We got to get into the real world, and find out what's going on, with our member companies. And not just all the, the sort of the negative things, about the impact of government, but also where there's some opportunities that we can help them. We're I'm never going to say that we're going to help them be successful, directly, but we can help create an environment where they can go out and be more competitive in the marketplace. At the end of the day, it comes up to their innovation, their ingenuity, and their business savvy to be successful. But we can help create, certainly in the government sphere and some other areas, an environment where the conditions exist where they can go out and be successful in the marketplace.
I've noticed you've said the word innovation a few times about, entrepreneurs and innovation. And actually I'm holding up right now a book that a member sent me called The Founder's Mentality. We were talking at a conference recently, and he said, you seem like the type of person who would really like this book. And it's all about entrepreneurial spirit and how to overcome crises of growth and everything else, which I feel like ABA is also in this kind of growth trajectory along with our members. What are some of these innovations? What are some of these entrepreneurial things that you've seen?
Sure. That's a great question. I was worried you're going to ask me, quiz me on that book, which I haven't read yet. But no, I think, the simple answer is in the area of product innovation. You can see, different flavors, extensions of current product lines. You've got one type of cookie, and you can, create a similar cookie but with a different flavor profile. So you see a lot of that going on. I mean, I've had the great opportunity to go, to see some of our members' innovation centers and see how that process works. And it's just fascinating to me. And, the bets that are placed, hoping, with a lot of research and data and information, but at the end of the day, there's a lot of hope and faith that the idea that you've come up with is going to resonate with a consumer, and so that's going to drive growth, because otherwise, you're investing a lot of capital in that new product. So that's a big piece of it. I think areas where this industry really should be really proud is in the areas of particularly energy conservation, sustainability. We've got members that have that are striving for or actually have achieved sort of zero waste in their operations. We've got folks that have set out some pretty ambitious goals in the area of sustainability, in the area of safety and occupational safety and health. I mean, this is an area where, just like food safety, these are non-competitive issues. I mean, this industry really takes its moral obligation to take care of its customers and particularly its skilled employees very, very seriously. So the results that we've seen through, the clear emphasis on reducing injuries in the workplace has been, I think you see that, and obviously there's a financial implication, but the benefit to sending people home safe to their families is invaluable. Similarly, to put out a product that there is so much confidence in the marketplace, it's healthy, it's nutritious, it's wholesome. This industry takes that very seriously. And given all of the changing consumer trends, some of them are fads, but some of them really start to become rooted, and to be able to adapt, to that and meet those needs. I've been in conversations where, there's some hand-wringing that goes on, and, how are we going to create these new products and all of that? And, I remind them, well, you created the last generation of products. You got a lot of smart people in this industry. You're going to be the folks that are going to create the new products that consumers are going to gravitate towards.
Do you think, so you were just talking about all of the good things that the industry is doing or has done. Are there some things that they could be doing better?
Yeah, I would say there's a couple of areas. That's a great question, Katie. I think they could do, and again, I'm not a marketing person, but so take this with a grain of salt. But I think they could do a better job of communicating some of the health benefits around the product. Certainly some of the products that the industry makes. I do think that, the fortification of flour that happened, 15 years ago or so on folic acid, the health benefits have been so documented, but I don't know the industry has taken full advantage of that. And now we're seeing, is fiber sort of the next thing? Is vitamin D, some of those things that are out there that could really help create a halo effect. Now, again, I'm not a marketing person, so I can't tell them how to position that in the marketplace. And then there's a lot of smart folks in the industry that are trying to do just that. So I think, that would be one aspect. I do think that, and we spend a lot of time, like if you've been to the annual meeting, we've changed that from sort of the very traditional, business conference with motivational speakers and all of that to really actionable insights. And in particularly, hopefully, the desire every year is to bring 3 or 4 things that are very forward looking so that the members and the industry can kind of take a look at, dig into. And it may be for them or it may not be for them, but we always want to be sort of challenging the industry, to be pushing the envelope. And I would say that's been a big change, certainly in my 25 years at ABA, is the willingness to take a look at those and to adapt them in a much more efficient and faster pace.
And what do you think about we were talking about innovation. We were talking about changes in the industry. Recently, we had a very large trade show in Las Vegas that we co-own called IBIE. And some of the most full panels talked about cannabis. And I know that I'm being very specific about that, but I have been pretty curious about what the industry is doing, what ABA is doing to kind of get ready for cannabis on a federal level. I'm not sure what's going on.
So I'm going to wade into some very, dangerous and frankly uncharted territory here. And let me just be very clear, as the father of 2 kids, early 20s, there's the moral conversation here. And part of it is shaped by, I think, some misinformation about, whether it's cannabis or hemp or frankly any other sort of new and innovative ingredient, but particularly those. They're loaded emotionally. And, particularly with the evolving social norms around, recreational marijuana and some other things, it's a really challenging environment out there. But at the end of the day, what I hear, and there may be some bakers that would surprise you that have, shared with me in confidence that they're looking at, how do they take advantage of some of these, new emerging disruptive ingredients, whatever we want to call it. And they always come back to, if the consumer is looking for those products, it doesn't change. They want them in a safe and healthy way. And right now, just to be brutally honest about it, it's the wild, wild west out there. And there's a lot of There's a lot of snake oil being sold about benefits, about what it is and what it isn't. And so one of the things we have been doing is not drawing the line about is this right or wrong, but forcing FDA, frankly, to make a decision about what can they evaluate the science and the medical claims. Can they provide just a basic operating structure? So if we have a baker that wants to move into that space, they can do so with some confidence that they're not going to run across other federal laws or state laws or things like that. So it really is, I mean, what I hear over and over again is from the bakers, just tell us what the rules are so that we know how we can navigate. And then we'll make a decision, are we in or are we out? If we're in, how are we going to go down that road, and things like that. And the challenge is, right now it's kind of in the shadows. And if it's going to be a serious contender in the food and beverage space, it needs to be in the bright light.
All right. Well, I know that we're running out of time, and I've been hogging the mic, so I'm going to hand it over to Haley to see if she has any last question.
I think we covered a lot in this show, and we even got to talk about wholesale cannabis baking products. So we really appreciate you coming in, taking the time to talk with us, Rob. We've learned a lot.
Sure. Thank you all very much. This has been fun.
Bake to the Future is brought to you by the American Bakers Association in partnership with Human Factor. To hear upcoming and past episodes, go to baketothefuture.org. Bake to the Future is produced by Haley Blumenreich. Audio engineer is Blake Alford. And A Slice of the Action is written by the American Bakers Association's Government Relations team.